Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us. I am Dr. Nicole Clark. I am an anchor for Spectrum News right here in Texas, and I am delighted to moderate this panel discussion. We are talking AI big bets in healthcare, tech, and pharma debate. We are so fortunate to have two leaders in their respective fields joining us today, talking about our featured speakers. Diogo Rao. He is Executive Vice President and Chief Information and Digital Officer for Eli Lilly and Company. Diego currently leads Lilly's information technology, cybersecurity, digital health, and advanced analytics and data science functions. He is very busy. He brings with him a strong expertise in technology, having spent 10 years at Apple, prior to joining Lilly in 2021. Now, under Diogo's visionary leadership, Lilly is leading the way in integrating the latest technology to accelerate drug discovery and get medicines to patients sooner, which we all want. Welcome, Diogo. We are also joined by Karen DeSalvo, Chief Health Officer at Google. Dr. DeSalvo is a physician and health leader who has dedicated her career to improving health outcomes for all, with a focus on solutions that address all of the determinants of health. As Chief Health Officer at Google, she leads a team of health professionals who provide guidance for the development of Google's research, products, and services. Welcome, Karen. We have a lot to discuss. Let's dive right in. This question is for both of you. Let's start with you, Diogo. Let's talk about how tech and pharma companies are working together to get medicines to patients faster and improve overall health outcomes. Can you give us some examples of success?
So I spent 10 years at Apple before coming to Lilly 4 years ago. And before that, I had spent my entire life in tech. And as far as I know, tech and life sciences have been very separate industries until just the last couple of years, really since the AI revolution took place. Now it's really exciting to see the intersection of the two that have been separated for so long. One of the things I'm excited about is all the things that medicine makers can do together with the startups in the world. We at Lilly, we're trying to do a lot, kind of like an Amazon Web Services model or an Apple Store app model, where we invite smaller startups in so that they can benefit from having somebody else that can do a lot of the heavy lifting so that they can focus on the science and the things that they really are the best at. But we're not just working together with small companies, we're also working together with big companies. Actually, one great example is this company called Isomorphic, which is part of Alphabet. Google's also part of Alphabet, as probably everybody here knows. And Isomorphic is a fantastic company that is working on discovering new molecules, new medicines based on AlphaFold and a lot of the great work that another Google Alphabet company has created.
Karen, can you add to that? Can you give us some examples of success?
Well, I think, as Diego said, it's a really nice pairing of understanding the health needs of the world's population, being able to prioritize those, do the R&D, and sort of get treatments to people around the world. What we bring is technology, we bring platforms, and increasingly we're bringing artificial intelligence in the form of general purpose AI, these models that have pretty extraordinary capabilities, not only to be a helper to a person in their task, but sometimes to also create novel ideas. Diego mentioned AlphaFold, which I think is just a great example of how this idea of how can we very quickly understand how proteins fold so that we can not only understand the mechanism of disease, but what are the ways that we could treat disease. A problem that would take a person their whole PhD can now be done in a very short order of time. They did a big chunk of the catalog over their Christmas holiday, actually at Google DeepMind. And I think the opportunity to be able to to understand how more than 200 million proteins fold, and now it's being used by researchers in countries around the world, 190 countries, is an example of how an open source model like that can help solve a big problem that's not even just a complex biological system, but a time issue. And then it gets people's brains on, okay, now what can we do about what we have learned? And honestly, I think it's the reason that the Nobel Prize Committee recognized that this was transformative in science and medicine. And so Sir Demis and John Jumper of Google won the Nobel Prize for it last year. And I think as a person who's been in medicine for a long time, and Nobel Prizes matter a lot to us, we pay attention to how the science is advancing. This idea that AI technology, a model like AlphaFold, could win a Nobel Prize for something that historically would have been more traditional in medicine or chemistry is a really exciting view into a transformational new chapter I think we're in, where pairing of what might have been considered computer science and applying that to the world's big health problems is a really exciting opportunity for people, and we just want to be a part of that.
Absolutely. So it's like you're increasing the knowledge base, you're increasing understanding to ultimately help people in terms of their lived experience and their lifestyle.
100%.
Got it.
Well.
Got it. Yes. All right. So this next question is for both of you as well. As we are speaking about big bets, what does the tech world offer, and how can that help pharmaceutical companies discover new medicines? Let's start with you, Karen.
I'll start with me?
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, in the first place, a company like Google is a life company. We're not a healthcare company. We're thinking about and partnering with people all across their life journey. Important part of great life is great health. Mm-hmm. And so we are always thinking about ways that our technology, whether that's ways that we help people get information about a condition or learn insights about their health from wearables, understand more about how digital biomarkers could be helpful to track in their own health. Now, what are the ways that AI can accelerate scientific discovery, bring forward novel hypotheses to help scientists think about new ways of tackling challenges. But I'd say also, Nicole, one of the things that we, as we step back and think about how technology wants to be helpful, is in this era that we're in of generative AI, it's remarkable to me that the world's big health challenges are very amenable to solving by general purpose AI. So think about, I usually say there's sort of three big problems every place on the planet faces, no matter where you go, whether it's Louisiana, which is home base for me, or Indonesia. It's that there's not enough workforce, and the workforce that's there is worn out. Mm-hmm. The second is that healthcare is just too expensive, and that it is hard to access in a way that's culturally and linguistically inappropriate in all the ways that matter. And third, that we're in information overload. A third of new data every year comes from healthcare. So there's a lot of onslaught, not just of research data, but also new evidence being published in journals, and new information that people are receiving about their own health. So AI is really good at augmenting people doing tasks for you, so you can focus on the other work that's more important, like in healthcare, be at the bedside with the patient instead of in front of a computer. In that second bucket, it's showing that it can improve efficiency and reduce the cost of some of our processes. We'll talk about maybe some of those specifically in R&D and manufacturing for pharma. And then also that it's really good at seeing patterns in data and helping to analyze it and assimilate it. So I'm just excited to be living in this time, quite honestly, when some of these big challenges that everyone faces, we might have technology that actually drives down costs, makes care more accessible, and helps the people delivering services or doing research every day.
And that's a win. I mean, and that's why there are those big bets on it, because it is showing great promise. What would you add to that, Diogo?
I bet everybody here thinks I'm going to talk about AI, and of course I'm going to talk about AI. But let me pick one area of AI where I think there's a big bet to be made, and that's back to proteins and protein design. So one of the coolest things to come out of generative design is actually image generation. And if you think about it, it's kind of magical now that you can just go in and just say, give me, create an image of South by Southwest on the moon, right? And what would that look like? And it's going to come up with it.
Don't give them any idea. Not them, but the South by Southwest.
That's right.
Right.
Well, but you can take that exact same approach to designing proteins. And here's the crazy part. If you go in and you say generate that image on to your favorite image generator, it's going to use a thing called a diffusion model. And it's going to come back with an image that's about, let's say, 1 million pixels. Well, when you're generating a protein, you don't necessarily need 1 million of anything. The largest proteins in the human body are about 30,000 amino acids, not 1 million. Most of the ones that we're interested in are probably around, let's say, 1,000 amino acids instead of 1 million. And on top of that, when you generate an image, you like to look at it in color, it's going to have 17 million colors to choose from. Well, here in protein design, we only have 20 different kinds of amino acids to choose from. So what sounds like an impossibly hard problem of generating proteins, I actually think is something that we're going to be able to really do something with by using the exact same kind of technology that we're using to generate images. So instead of saying I need South by Southwest on the moon, I need a protein that does this, 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 this. And we'll be able to run it through those kinds of diffusion models. But besides AI, I think there's one more thing that I'm really excited about for what tech can do in medicines. Tech moves on a different clock speed from every other industry that I've been familiar with, especially pharma. And I couldn't have seen the contrast more profoundly when I first came in 4 years ago. We were looking at timelines that were 10 years out. We were looking at we were meeting on a quarterly basis for important things. In the tech world, you don't do anything on a quarterly basis, and talking 10 years out is like science fiction. The tech world thinks and operates on daily, weekly cycles. Actually, Karen was telling me before, I mean, in your world, people are looking at things intraday all the time. That kind of speed that is actually cultural is actually one of the most exciting things I think about this intersection of medicine and technology coming together, because I think we're going to be able to start moving in medicines at a much, much faster speed than we ever have before.
That's exciting. And Karen, you are nodding over there. What would you like to add?
I just love this thinking about the cultural distinctions, but ways that we're learning to come together. And it is true that in tech, this is such a big shift for me coming from history of medicine, and I was in government for a little while, but boy, in tech, there is no resting on your laurels. You're constantly trying to understand how users are using your products, especially for us on surfaces like YouTube and search. What are the ways that we can make it better and serve up the information that they're really looking for? And it makes it very exciting because you're constantly trying to improve, and you're getting all this feedback in the loop from the people who are using your product. I will say, and I will talk about AI a lot, I'm sorry, is that what happened a couple of years ago in terms of pace, though, was this really palpable shift. Even in all the things that we're already working to improve in tech, the competition between all the foundation model AI companies is so intense. And it means that not only are we thinking about all the time the application and how the products are working, but what's coming in terms of the technology. And I have a feeling that's a little bit of what's happening with you all as you're getting more and more novel discoveries and thinking about how you can move that pipeline faster to really just get it to people. Right. So I like the way we're going to learn from each other about all those things.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about today. And I like the idea of the pace being faster, because that just allows you to help the patient sooner, to make tweaks and make changes sooner for the ultimate goal of being a success. Okay, so Diogo, yes, we are talking about AI. Talk to us about how AI is changing the way pharma creates new medicines.
So the company that I'm at, Lilly, has been around for about 150 years, and for the past 100 years, I think medicine and discovery has been done basically the same way. You've got what are called medicinal chemists. They're doing stuff in a lab with lab coats on, all of that. You can kind of picture the scene. And they're exploring different things and imagining new molecules. Well, there's a problem with that, because if you take a chemist that works 30 years, 250 hours a day, or 250 days a year, 8 hours a day, you're limited on you've got maybe 60,000 hours that you're going to be able to work over your entire lifetime. And when you think about the vast space of medicine that's to be explored, it's unbelievably large. in what we call small molecules, the medicines you take as pills, just those combinations are the number of possible medicines to explore is far beyond the number of stars in the universe. And so you're not going to be able to go visit every galaxy and every star system. So what do chemists do with the 60,000 hours that they have? They're going to focus on the things that are the most promising. They're going to focus on the stars that are next to them rather than the ones that are far away, because they're going to try to go for what's the best, or what's the most likely to yield results. Well, what we're seeing right now is the way that compute and AI is really being used is to explore the things that humans don't have time to look at. And that is actually very, very exciting, because we don't have the capacity to explore all the stars in the universe, but maybe the machines can, or they can get somewhere close to that. And already we're getting some surprising discoveries. One of the very first times that we used computer-driven design to generate new molecules, we came back with a handful of molecules that looked like they had really interesting properties. The problem was they looked like something completely different from anything else that you had seen. I'm not a chemist, but I know enough to be able to look at it and say, wow, that molecule doesn't look like anything else I've ever seen before. So we take this handful of molecules that the machine came up with, we go over to the chemist and we say, tell us what's wrong with these molecules. Obviously, we need to do a better job of training our model because it just spit out a bunch of crap. And you know what the chemist said? That's really interesting. We hadn't thought about doing it that way. A light bulb went off in the chemist's mind. And actually, a light bulb went off for me in all of that too, because too often we think about AI as this linear process. We think about, we as humans, we take a bunch of input, we stick it into the AI comes up with something on the other side. But what's really exciting about AI is when we start thinking about it as a cycle. We make the AI better, but the AI inspires us as humans to be better. It takes us down new paths and new places that we would not have explored. That's what gets me really excited about the direction that discovery is heading.
Yeah, because there's discovery happening on both sides.
That's right.
Right?
And there's this story. I love this story. It's also about how you can augment the human. The human has only so much capacity sometimes, and the AI can pick up either where the human left off, or it can partner with the AI to think about new ideas. We have our research team created something called co-scientists that we published about last week, and it's very much along these lines. There's scientists that have done great work. Sometimes they have a repository of data and information. Can the agent scientist, the digital agent, go and look at that same data and maybe see some novel things that the scientist didn't have a chance to look at, or maybe didn't see in terms of pattern, and bring that back as a lab assistant might to the head of the lab and say, let's look at these things and consider these possibilities. And that's when it gets exciting, because then you're really expanding the universe.
We're very excited about co-scientists. It's fantastic.
I'm glad that you're both excited for good reason. But you talk about there being so many options, right? So how do you determine which models to use and for what purpose, Karen?
So this is sort of like going to a buffet of delicious everything, every kind of taco that you might want, which is maybe what it's like to visit Austin. And here's the thing that I would tell people is the capabilities of the foundation models, Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, these models are very neck and neck most of the time on the leaderboards. And so as days go on, different ones will be at the top. And sometimes it's for different capabilities, because some of them are being built more to support coders, some have more of a creative bent. The task purpose that's involved in the training can be a little bit different, so the under the hood. But for the most part, for most tasks for people, they feel fairly similar and can be very useful depending on what you want to do with them. And so what I usually tell people is start using them. Learn about the names of the different apps, learn about different models, learn about kind of how to talk to them, how to prompt them, learn where they go wrong, be discerning in the kind of information that you get back. And I think people will find, just as we found in our daily work at the company, some models are better at some things and some are better at other things. So in my daily work, I might use one model for building a project plan. I might use one for building a marketing campaign draft. I might use one to do performance evaluation first drafts, right? Because the temperature's set a little different, and the way that they're able to interact and produce a product basically varies. And I think we're going to find over time that there is not one size fits all. In the way that we kind of have multiple apps on our phone that do different things, it'll be a little or a lot more invisible and behind the scenes, but I think I don't want people to feel like they have to just have one relationship with one model. I want people to start using them and getting used to them. Also because the models are not perfect. And so I think it's really important for people to start to learn how to talk and interact with them, and not only learn how to get them to perform tasks, but learn when they're going to do things wrong. And as the models get more and more autonomous and start to be agents acting on our behalf, you also want to understand how much leash you're willing to give them. So just like when smartphones came out and we had to learn how to get an app for everything, kind of that journey is a little bit the journey we're in now. This is transformational technology. But I want people to be smart about how they're learning about it and how they're starting to use it.
Sure. And I think being smart about it is, as you say, being open to it, trying it on, trying the different models, and then customizing it to your needs. But then also, as you said before, remaining the human in the process.
Yes.
Being discerning.
Yes, very, very important. A human in the loop, and I think learning to be critical. With the information that's coming. So by the way, one of the great reasons that it's nice to work with the R&D teams at Lilly, because they're so discerning, and it's such a great critical thinking way of, here's what a model can do. Oh, well, as a scientist, this is actually where it got it wrong or where it got it right, and help to make those models do the things we want them to.
So I think the theme thus far has been excitement, right? A lot of excitement about the possibilities of joining forces and what that can do just for us as humans moving forward and making sure that patients are receiving care faster in a more efficient manner. But let's also talk about any challenges. Diogo, have you noted any challenges in combining tech and working in pharma?
Actually, no. Actually, believe it or not, it's gone very, very smoothly. Probably discover more problems to go after than challenges of working with one another.
I think that's very true, and as we've learned more about the value chain of pharma and sort of there's this R&D component. There's also manufacturing. There are issues related to getting the right drug to the right person at the right time. There are opportunities around making sure that there's novel design for therapeutics that might be for conditions that are very unusual, like orphan diseases. So there's lots of ways that we're learning, oh, we have this toolbox. Here are some ways that we can be helpful. And we mentioned some of them earlier, too, which Diogo knows very well. It's a set of wearables that can help with digital therapeutics and digital diagnostics, so that we're not so intrusive as we're understanding how maybe the pharmaceuticals work and how people's health is going. So there's, I think, more opportunity to find ways to bring the skills and the technologies together than we've actually had challenges. It's not enough time.
Not enough time.
Enough time.
If only AI could improve that aspect.
Right. Well, it's going to give us back more time as well.
Right. Good. Well, we mentioned the fact that you are a physician, that you've worked in medicine for over 20 years. Have you faced any challenges moving from medicine to technology?
It's definitely a different world in a number of ways, and I think that part of that is medicine. It can be very hierarchical. And tech tends to be very flat, and we have a way that we talk about working at Google that it's a slime mold. Maybe the actual way I would describe it is it's like you work inside of a Google Doc. If anyone's ever had a Google Doc where everyone can add in their ideas no matter what, it's not clear who resolves all the comments. It's a very organic, fun place to work, whereas medicine, sort of has a different approach. So it's nice to bring those things together, because sometimes you do need to be linear and hierarchical, especially when you're dealing with life and death issues like medicine. But it's also true that some of that agile thinking that we want to bring into the clinical teams really is important. I think one thing I would say is a definite difference about the two kinds of worlds is that in traditional medicine, it's the doctor and the patient in front of them, and working to make sure that I would understand that person's needs and wants and their medical situation, and work with them to build a health plan that made sense for that one person. Whereas in tech, we're always trying to scale. How do we do this around the world for every person, everywhere, to find health on their own terms? What's nice about AI is that it allows us to scale in that way that can more personalize the experience in the way that I would have to do one-on-one with physicians, excuse me, with patients. And maybe just say also that for us at the company, it's been really important to embed clinicians with very diverse backgrounds and walks of life, lived experience into the engineering teams across the company. Because just because an engineer could build something doesn't mean they should. Mm-hmm. We want to solve big challenges that really matter to people on the front lines everywhere. And so the pairing beyond just my work every day, but the clinicians in the team and the engineers has gone really well because they respect each other's knowledge and point of view, but because we're just trying to figure out, we've got this great set of tools. What are the big challenges that we should be thinking about? Mm-hmm.
Thinking about and addressing. So just letting you know that we are going to save time for Q&A for you to join this conversation. In about 5 minutes, you'll be able to go to the microphone that's set up in the back and ask Diogo and Karen your questions, okay? But for now, Diogo, let's talk about the big picture. What does that look like over the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Over the next 5 years, I'm probably the most excited about the new molecules that AI is going to come up with. Back to what I was talking about, AI taking us into different places we haven't explored. And I do think we are going to see new medicines hitting the market over that next 5 to 10 years that had the AI revolution not happened, we would never see those medicines. So I think that's actually coming. When you start getting out to 10 to 20 years, that's where I get really excited about genetic medicine and the potential to improve the quality of our life. I actually think that over perhaps the next 100 years, we can have a profound impact in just eliminating chronic disease. That is incredibly exciting, and perhaps beyond that, we can get into regenerative medicine. We have at least a good 150 years of exciting times ahead of us.
And we've talked about drug discovery, but talk a bit more about how technology is going to help with drug development.
I thought when I came into this industry, well, actually I had no idea just how much things cost. Like a typical Hollywood movie is like $30 million. I think the most expensive one ever made, Avengers Endgame, was around $400 million. You know how much it costs to make a medicine, to develop a medicine, bring to market? It's on just an ordinary medicine, not anything special, is $2 to $3 billion. And that's not taking into account all the other failures that went along with that. That's 100 Hollywood movies or 7 Avengers Endgames. And the amount of money spent there is enormous. Now, probably because I watched so many movies, I thought that it was all about scientists in lab coats in wet labs trying to discover new medicines, that's where all the money went. That's actually just the tiniest part of it. Where the money is really spent is in the 10 years of clinical trials that it takes to bring these medicines to market. So that's where the energy needs to go. Today, we're already bringing in generative AI to help with all the documents. And when I say everybody has documentation, but I'm not sure any industry has documentation like this one. The reason I say that is actually another surprising thing that I learned when I came into this industry was that Lilly used to have send-off parties for the semi. What semi? The semi, not taking medicines to patients, no, the semi that is carrying an entire semi-load, sometimes two, of paper to go to the FDA in Washington, D.C., an entire semi. That's how much documentation gets generated. So obviously, huge opportunity there for AI, but that's only scratching the surface because today, in the way that we run clinical trials, we still rely on a lot of things that at least I think are outdated, like patient-reported outcomes. These are things where you ask a patient, how active have you been, or how well are you sleeping, or things like that. Why do we need to do any of that when we have better mechanisms like smartwatches to see if people have been active? If we use these kinds of biomarkers, we can do two things. One, we can probably shorten the trial times, and then two, we can reduce the number of people in clinical trials because the data is less noisy. So if we shorten the trials and we reduce the number of people in the trials, I think we can make a huge dent in that $2 to $3 billion that it takes to bring medicines to market.
Yeah, and that's a great goal. What would you add, Karen? Where do you see things in the next 5 to 10 years from your vantage point?
I think one of you said earlier that's too long of a horizon for tech. So, but I'll tell you where we'd like to see it go, honestly, Nicole, which is that the opportunity in this sort of knowledge age that we're in is for health to be much more personal and personalized for people. Right now, the way it works is you sort of, there's a generic set of recommendations that are matched up against the population, when in fact there's quite a lot of diversity in individuals, in not only in their own genomics, but also in their preferences, for example, their own lived experiences. And what the technology is evolving to do is to be able to customize for people, no matter who they are, a way that they can find health on their own terms. And Diogo was mentioning wearables, and I'll just give you an example of the kind of work we're seeing and doing that's not healthcare, but health-related. So in Fitbit, we've been working with users that have opted in to create a personal large language model. One that starts to know you, it knows your biometrics, so it knows your sleep, it knows your steps, it knows if you want to include food that you've eaten, it can include health information about what kind of conditions that you have. And of course, you set some goals, and it's not just then a generic coach that's giving you advice, it's your coach that knows you and knows your history. And one of the things, for example, that one of the early versions of the model did for one of the test folks was the person liked jazz music, and the model said, you need extra steps this week. There's a jazz festival this weekend near you. You should go to that and you can walk around. That's the kind of health personalization. Oh, that makes sense to me. I would like to do that, right? Making the easy thing the good thing to do. And it'll extend beyond that. We'll be able to design medications, design therapeutic pathways for people that make sense on their own terms. And I get so excited about that because you want to do that on an every person basis, but for 8.4 billion people, and there's not enough workforce on the planet, how can technology be an aid and an assistant not only to the clinical teams and the researchers, but also to every person?
Yeah, I mean, serving the individual, making their life better. I mean, that is the ultimate goal.
It is, and I think just to underscore this piece also, that the world we're in today, especially with general purpose AI, is democratizing access to knowledge and information in a way that we haven't even seen before, and putting that power in the hands of every person so they can drive and manage their health in partnership with their care teams is the kind of future that I want to see happen.
That's the future that we all want. We have heard from physicians for years to be our own advocate. This is a way to do that in a very customized fashion. Okay, great. We want to open the floor, have you join the conversation. If any of you have questions for our panelists, this is a great time for you to do that. Just step to the microphone right now or grab it, and then we will take your questions. I have some people walking to the back now. As they are getting in position, Diogo, let's talk about just like the investment, because I know that Lilly is making a significant investment into the future to the tune of more than $50 billion.
Yeah, you're talking about the $50 billion that we've announced that we're doing around manufacturing. These things that are called large molecules, the ones that you inject as opposed to the things that you take in pill form, turn out to be really hard to make, and that's why you need big investments in manufacturing. It's very important for us as a country, but it's also a fascinating place to use AI. In anything that you inject, that comes out of our factories, our manufacturing sites, 70 photographs are taken looking for defects. So just an incredible amount of scrutiny over just of making sure no possible impurity gets in there.
Got it. Okay, let's take questions.
Hi, my name's David Kane. Just a quick one. I'm very interested to know what you think about the nexus of AI and blockchain as it applies to healthcare. It seems like it might have some really exciting potential.
Thank you.
I haven't gone too far down that path, though. I think a good use case for it would be healthcare records, and another one would be on clinical trials, because I think in clinical trials, over 10 years, you want to make sure that any results in there do not get altered in any way. You could imagine a cyber criminal out there trying to go in and tamper with records to manipulate a clinical trial result to get an advantage.
Just to add that there have been some efforts to create a better data donation kind of model for people if they want to be involved in clinical trials or want to contribute their data to help solve health challenges for others. And so I think there's some interesting ways that people have been thinking about a more federated model of data, but I haven't seen anything that's really been able to scale yet.
Okay,
Thank you.
Diego, you mentioned bringing clinical trials to patients, and we know in phase 1 and phase 2, those are the most expensive and hardest places to get therapies to patients. But there's also the barriers to the FDA approvals and all of that, that piece of the puzzle that goes beyond this, and them wanting to do things kind of a old school way. So how is Lilly and Google, how are you working with the FDA to be able to fast forward and fast track molecule development, the phases of clinical trials, to be able to get to those FDA approvals faster, to get medicine to patients?
You can talk about digital biology.
Sure. And so the FDA, like any organization, is not just a single voice of a single mindset. And so there are a lot of different personalities within the FDA. Some are favor a more aggressive approach with AI, some less, but I think overall there's appetite and interest in doing more. Now, we have a lot of history in how we do things and how we handle regulation that makes it hard. One of the ways that we're taking a look at some of this is actually testing out some of these digital biomarkers and other technologies in other countries where it's actually easier to try these things out. And I'm not talking about easier in terms of safety or anything else. I'm talking about easier of just getting through the bureaucracy of actually testing things. As it turns out, the FDA, as well as its counterparts in other countries, are quite happy to look at a test result that you've done in another location. So we're actually trying things out, not just in the US, but in other countries as well, and hope to bring some of that back to the US.
I used to be a regulator, so I've been on that side as well. And here's what I'd say about how I see the FDA has been thinking about it. One is that they've been very open to seeing that AI is used to submit regulatory paperwork, et cetera. So they've been welcoming to this kinds of novel paperwork, if you will, approaches. The second is they've been learning to use it in their own daily work. So they're learning to get smart, not just receiving it, but how does the technology work, like my comment earlier. And I think the sort of third bucket is if there are going to be front-facing use cases of general purpose AI for clinical environment or for the regulated environment, they're still learning what is the way that they should assess performance and safety for that, but they've also been very open across the last few years to having a public-private conversation. So I feel actually pretty optimistic that they're open to it, welcoming, learning about it themselves, and trying to understand what is their role going forward so that we can make good use of the technology.
I love it. If we can get rid of those 10-year approval processes.
Thank you.
I'm with you.
Hi, I was really interested to hear you talking about personalized health and personalized drug discovery, but I've been working for a long time in behavioral health, on behavioral health tech at Lark Health and Twin Health and now us too. And I'm curious it's kind of a different direction from pharma, right? But I'm very curious if you guys have thought about the intersection of Lilly kind of pharma as well as behavioral health, and what you think about that.
Well, I'll jump in here first, but you are spot on in being concerned about behavioral health. One of the things that's the most shocking to me, was the most shocking to me when I came into this industry, and now I'm starting to become slightly numb to, is how poor adherence can be on life-saving medicines. The leading cause of death in the United States is cardiovascular. We have things like statins. Statins actually are life-saving, and yet the adherence on them is somewhere in the range of 50 to 60%. A big reason for that is because we're not bringing in the behavioral elements that you're pointing out. We're not bringing in the nudges and other things and other factors in there. So I think that aside from discovery, that's actually the space that I'm the most excited about, where we have the most opportunity, because it's important not just for us to make medicines. They only work if people take the medicine at the dose that they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, and they keep doing that for as long as they need to.
Thanks.
Thank you. On that vein, actually, for Eli Lilly and Google, do you guys see any efforts or work in empowering patients to better access their information or access care herein? Thank you.
Big double thumbs up, yes. And one of the reasons that I came to Google is because we are a life company and we're a consumer-facing company principally. We get about 500 million health questions a day on search, and in a given year, about 200 billion health videos are watched on YouTube. And we have ways that we follow the public health guidelines of messaging, so raise high quality information with partners, look for harmful misinformation, remove it. But all along that journey, that's been for us to try to personalize it more for people as appropriate and as they want it personalized. Because generic information in a pamphlet doesn't always apply just to you, and you're going to see a little more of us trying to meet people where they are, and with their consent, if they want us to tell a little more about, well, I'm a woman of this age and I have these conditions, what else can you tell me? And AI lets us start to do that, and like in the AI overviews, it's easier to provide a paragraph than just a set of links. But the insights piece and the way that people really get excited about being on a health journey has much more to do with, say, like a wearable space. So having a doctor friend in your pocket built into your phone, or a nurse friend in your pocket built into your phone is I think, the future of where things are going. One that something that, with your consent, knows you, knows how knows what your preferences are, kind of knows your history, and helps you on that journey. Very importantly in that is this idea that when you show up into the clinical encounter, you know the questions to ask, you got your medical history there. And so we have ways that we've been working to, for example, with Health Connect, building in a layer for people to store a personal health summary. And just being able to give you that knowledge in your hand so that when you show up, I'll tell you, whenever my patients showed up with that, I'm old. So when it used to be a spiral-bound notebook with all their labs and blood pressure, like all their blood glucose and blood pressures. I was so excited because I thought, this is a patient who's really paying attention, and now we're gonna have a conversation. And so the more that we can do that for every person on the planet, the happier I will be.
And I love the point about it being the patient's data. I think that's one of the things that needs to change in the mindset of this industry. It sounds obvious that it's your data, but one of the things I ran into when I first came here is this mindset that, well, it's really data for the doctor to have the conversation with the patient. Now, of course, the doctor needs to have the conversation with the patient using that data, but the data really belongs to you as the patient. When I was at Apple, I was there during our very first heart health study. And so I participated in that study dutifully and recorded everything that they wanted me to. We get to the end of the study, the last day, and I push go. I can't wait to see all my results, all of the stuff that I've been putting in here. Guess what I saw? Actually, I see you smiling. You probably know what the answer is. The answer was, thank you for participating in the study. The study is now closed. And I didn't see anything else. To this day, I have no idea what happened with all that data that I put in, and it still makes me mad to this day.
Mad but not bitter, and that's a good thing. And yes, the goal is to have an empowered patient who is advocating for their health. Thank you so much for that question. Absolutely. I will say that, sadly, we have reached the end of this panel discussion, but all is not lost for those of you who have graciously stood in line. I will invite you to come to the front of the stage, and I believe Diogo and Karen will take time to answer your question personally, customized response just for you. The AI way. For now, I do want to thank you so much for joining us for this panel discussion. This information has been both insightful and enlightening, and I am, even as a behavioral health individual, a mental health professional, so excited about the future of tech and pairing that with healthcare. Again, I thank you, Diogo and Karen, for sharing your expertise. I hope you have enjoyed your time here, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of your South by experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.